So Marvel have put out a new comic trying to explain and justify the reason for this term we keep hearing, Latinx. Because apparently if you put the X at the end of it, that's more inclusive to non-gender conforming, whatever bollocks they want to say. When of course, as most normal functioning people realise, just saying Latin has nothing to do with whatever gender you identify as. Just say Latin. It's got nothing attached to it. But Marvel uses Miles Morales, Spider-Man, and Anya Corazon, Spider-Girl, to promote use of Latinx. Despite the fact that only 3% of Hispanics use the term to self-identify themselves, and even more consider it to be equivalent to a racial slur, Marvel's latest issue of their Diversity Celebrating Voices series features a story in which the Miles Morales incarnation of Spider-Man and Spider-Girl attempt to justify the use and existence of Latinx to the reader, even though 3% of Hispanics use it. They're just idiots, man. I don't look at it and see it as like a racial slur. It's more like, just shut up. Just shut up, you bunch of weirdos. That's really how I see it. It's like, no, you're just being weird, and you don't want to walk it back because that will offend your social justice readers that don't buy your comics. Because let's be honest, that's the only reason they're only doing it for these social justice types. They're not doing it on behalf of Hispanics because they're saying they don't want to be called that in mass. If you ever look at when Marvel bring it up on Twitter, in mass, people say, stop fucking saying that. Stop calling me that. But no matter how many times you say to them, just stop saying that, will you? They just keep doing it because they have to. So we'll read through some of this. So it starts off, are these signs yours? Oh yes, thank you so much. I was headed to an immigrants' rights rally at City Hill. Oh, fucking hell. Is this a comic? Is this meant to be entertainment? All right. So a rally, it goes on and on, they're on about, they want to go down to the rally, as superheroes do. So this involves Miles Morales' mother, where, of course, she says Latin because she's, like, normal. And they're trying to, you've got some white woman trying to explain to her why we should be using the term Latinx. So she says, hi Anya, what does that mean, Latinx? I've heard the term thrown around lately, but I've never had the opportunity to really ask about it. My advice would be to you, there's no point asking about it, because it's horse shit. Then this is when the white woman's going to explain to her about why it's inclusive and all that shit. She says, Latinx is just a more inclusive way to refer, and as we've established already, just saying Latin is already inclusive. To refer to people rather than as Latino or Latina. Just say Latin then. It's very simple. Inclusive, huh? What's wrong with Latino and Latina? Well, the white woman's going to tell you. Weren't those working just fine until now? Yeah, they're still fine now. Just keep saying them. Don't say Latinx. Just a bunch of weirdos. Well, the thing about Latinx is that it's an all-encompassing term. It doesn't assume anyone's gender the way that Spanish usually does. The term Latin doesn't assume gender. Latina may be working just fine for people like us who identify as female, but for those who are gender non-conforming or identify as non-binary or gender fluid, why is this in a comic? Why is this a comic storyline? The forced gendering of Latino and yeah, it's forced. Don't have nothing to do with nature or nothing, does it? Of Latino and Latina can be really tricky to deal with. No, it's not tricky. It isn't tricky. You're trying to make it seem tricky with your absolute word soup. But there's nothing tricky about it. Then we move on to Miles giving his mother a lecture, the little shit. So he says, she said she wanted me to do it ahorita, but then got annoyed with me for not doing it right away, because to us, ahorita means later, but to her it means right now. Oh, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So maybe language should be adapted when it muddies up something as important as somebody's personal identity. Well, I'll tell you something, it's not important. It has little importance. It's very, very trivial stuff. But it's treated like it's really important. It's the most important thing to a person. You know, it's got nothing to do with a person's personality. Everything's to do with their race, their gender. For some reason, that's just what these people think. And before Latino, they just called us Hispanic, which never felt quite right for me personally either. But on the other hand, I know a lot of people who still prefer the term Hispanic. I think it's just about figuring out what works best for you and respecting what works best for other people. But yeah, but no, it's not though, is it? You want other people to say what you want us to say. So this idea that you use what you want to use and we use what we want to use, these people don't think that. They think, no, these are the words we came up with, so these are the words you must use. And if you don't use them, you're just a bigot. That's pretty much what I'm getting at. Okay, one more question. Does Latinx even translate to Spanish? Because I think that's probably a pretty important part of all this, right? Of course, the term was actually developed by alphabet people in Latin America, so it definitely translates. Latin is also... Just say Latin, man. We're just adding on letters. Just add on letters, because that's inclusive. Latin is another inclusive alternative that's been gaining steam lately. Well, I've never heard it. Though Latinx is still the most accepted term at the moment, accepted by a minority of people. It's not accepted by the majority. The majority of people think you're crazy. Just this, no, we need to keep changing words to make them more inclusive. Words need to be inclusive. But you ultimately should just use whatever term feels more comfortable for you and those around you. It's not a huge deal. Yeah, it's not a huge deal. It's just fucking weird. So this is when they get to their little rally. So you've got the news reporter saying a citywide day of action by immigrant activists has culminated in this unprecedented rally at City Hall. Thousands of Latinx families and their allies, we're fighting a war. We're in a war. So their allies have come together to make their voices heard. They demand dignity. So you've got Latinx and proud. We are all immigrants. Hispanics make America great. Immigrants belong in New York. Again, it's acted as if it's like, I don't give a shit. No more raids. New York welcomes refugees, but it's still just Latinx. When, as we've seen at the start of this article, it said only 3%, 3% of Latin people use it. So I'll keep saying Latin like a normal person. You can say what you want to say, but I'm not going to say what you want me to say and try and hide behind this. Oh no, it's just if you want to say that. Even again, it's just this thing. It's like just saying Latin is already inclusive, and I do hate saying that word because at this point, a word like that it's so cringe. But that's what I'm just saying. Latin's got nothing to do with assuming people's gender. All it is, it's just a way to be difficult. These people like this, they just like to be difficult. They just love being difficult to deal with. That's why they just come up with these nonsensical terms. So I think we've pretty much went over this Latinx, their reasoning behind it, which we already knew anyway. It's just, oh, well, they're more inclusive, when it doesn't. All it is adding an X to the end of a word. That's all it is. That's literally all you're doing. You're just adding an X to a word. But maybe Marvel have convinced you that you should be using the word Latinx. They may have convinced you. They may have not. Who bought the comic? Not a lot of people. So in the end up, don't really matter. But that's all I've got to say on that anyway. So if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.